Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, today it's finally time to get back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And of course, I'll once again be discussing the 2012 show, since that is my TMNT. And to me, this show really is just, yeah, I look at it and say, that's what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is. That's what they look like. Yeah. But instead of talking about one of the turtles like I did last time, because aside from Leah, that's what my last video on the Turtles was about, one of the only characters I really think I have something to say about is the Shredder. This is definitely the best version of the Shredder. Before I get into this and why this is the best version of the character, I want to quickly address the others. So, I haven't read any Turtles comics, really. I've tried to. I don't like them. They're just not for me. And I'll just say this. The Shredder, I think it's stupid in the IDW comics that the Turtles are the reincarnations of a guy and his four sons that were murdered by the Shredder in ancient Japan. I think that's really stupid. But okay, for other versions of the Shredder, the 1987 version is really funny. Who doesn't love him? He's great, but I don't think anyone wants to see that in that kind of character in something new. No. Um, the movie version, I like the 1990 version. I think that movie's overrated, but it's still a very good movie. I like it a lot. Um, Although I will say that I've never been a fan of Splinter being Hamato Yoshi's pet. I've always thought it just made the Shredder, him and the Shredder's rivalry, I guess. It makes it feel like it has less weight. But Shredder in 2003 series is, yeah, he's menacing, but I've never been able to get through that much of the 2003 series, and there's a whole video on 2012 Shredder that brings up a lot of this from Geekly. It's a great video, but in short, it's just that I don't think Shredder should be able to be beaten by the Turtles so easily the way they do beat him in Season 2, because yeah, it shows how far they've come, but the Shredder is supposed to be this unstoppable beast. The Turtles can beat him, but it should never be easy. But that's just one of the many reasons why I think the 2012 Shredder is the best one. So without, oh, and Rise Shredder is great, but he doesn't really do that much. So without further ado, let's do it to it. We're going to be dissecting how the Shredder in this show, we see him grow from a man to not just a monster, but to a demon. How's that sound poetic? Okay, first of all, we have to start at the beginning. Not when we first see him, but the beginning of his life. So it turns out that, so we know that obviously the Shredder is leader of the Foot Clan. That's how it usually goes. Here it's that his clan, the Foot, of course, and Hamato Yoshi's clan, the guy who eventually becomes Splinter, they were both from rival clans in a never-ending war. But eventually the Hamato clan defeated the Foot, but their leader rescued a baby son of the Foot, and he took him in and raised him as Hamato Yoshi's brother. And for a long time, Yoshi really believed that he was the biological brother of Splinter. And they both were very happy with it. They were very good brothers. They were good friends. But they were just always rivals in a lot of things. And especially since now here's a part a lot of people make fun of. They say that 2012 Shredder is a loser because he hates Splinter because he married the girl he liked, which that's not exactly how it went. It's that they were always rivals and things. So when they were both in love with the same woman and I guess Yoshi won out, that just made him really angry because he still had the idea in his head that I'm better than him, especially since Yoshi was, as we see in the flashback episode, what's it called, Tale of the Yokai. Splinter before when he was just Hamato Yoshi before he got mutated, he was kind of a jerk. He was pretty arrogant. So honestly, I don't blame him for not really liking him that much. Not liking him that much. And when you add all the rivalry up and put this together, that's just the final nail in the coffin. But what really settles it, what really turns him evil, is when Oroku Saki, the man who eventually becomes the Shredder, finds out that he is from the Foot Clan, he was raised by the enemy in his entire life, and was pretty much just lied to. And this makes him really angry. He feels completely betrayed, and he's thinking that I'm being raised by the enemy, I can't be raised by the enemy. And this really gets to him, which Quickly, I'm gonna say this multiple times throughout the video, but Kevin Michael Richardson is one of the greatest voice actors of all time, and this is probably his best role. But things really get bad once he finds other members of the Foot Clan, unites them together to lead them to destroy the Hamato clan temple and finally get revenge on Splinter. And he eventually has to fight Yoshi and has absolutely no problems with fighting his brother whatsoever because to him, they're no longer brothers, they're enemies. And the woman they both love, Tang Shen, gets in the way and he accidentally kills her. He accidentally slashes her and she dies. Except, of course, being the guy who becomes the Shredder. I mean, now this is the first time he has blades on his hands. He stubbornly blames Yoshi. He says, "It was your fault!" And he still holds this over his head for the entire rest of the show. He's still obsessed with this idea. But during the fight, he gets burned and his face is permanently scarred and I guess he loses all his hair too. And Splinter thought that in this huge fire and all this panic, that not only did Tang Shen die, but so did his daughter, his just little baby daughter. And that's when Yoshi left to New York, where he eventually got mutated and became Splinter. But for Oroku Saki, things didn't end like that just yet, because it turns out Splinter's daughter did not die. He found her and took her in and raised her as his own and called her Karai. That's where Karai comes from in this show, which that is one that's very messed up. He kidnapped another man's child when he just found her in the wreckage and decided to raise her to hate her actual father. Oh, oi. That is some really messed up stuff. 'Cause that really goes to show just how evil this version of the Shredder is. I mean, 2003 version, yeah, he really did some bad things to his henchmen. He really messed them up. But I mean, this version of the Shredder doesn't even need to. Everyone is so terrified of him. But this is when, years later, he has finally become the Shredder himself. He's gone to New York after hearing that there are ninja with the Hamato clan logo on their weapons in New York City, and now he is the Shredder. He's got the armor and the helmet and everything. And boy, is he a threat. I'll get into his confrontations with the Turtles later, but again, I like how this show really built him up as this guy is a serious threat. That's why he hardly ever fights the Turtles. That's why you mostly just see him in his lair. Because this guy doesn't even bother to go fight, because he really doesn't need to. He only fights when people come to him. He hardly ever comes to his enemies. But eventually, after a long time, once the Turtles find out that Shredder tells Splinter in a big fight that his daughter didn't die, but he took her in and she's Karai. And eventually Karai figures out the truth. And what does Shredder do with this? He locks her up in prison and tries to tell her that, well, everything I ever said was to protect you. He may be your real father, but he's evil. He killed your mother. I'm your true father. And Karai obviously does not buy that that Splinter killed Tang Shen because, I mean, just look at the Shredder. It's obviously him. He's completely insane. But this just really messes him up even more. But still, as we can see, he's still, even though he's pretty much a monster now, he's no longer a man. He still has some bit of humanity left in him because he doesn't just kill Karai once she finds out the truth. He's pleading with her, trying to tell her, no, you gotta listen to me. But it doesn't work, and he accidentally gets her mutated, which he, of course, still blames on Splinter because he's just so stubborn. And now we have to finally get into his confrontations with the Turtles. These really sell him as a threat. If everything to do with Splinter sold him as a deep character, this sells that, yeah, this guy is really dangerous. Because when the Turtles first fight him, that's when the show, for the first time, outside of a few small moments, that's where the show really kicks into gear, as this show is going to take itself seriously. The Turtles get really beat up easily. As he says, "Your skills are impressive, but they will not save you." And when he fights the Turtles again in season 2, well, it's just Leo. There's that trope in Ninja Turtles where they always have, in the 1990 movie it's Raph, but they usually have some story where Leo runs away and gets a bunch of foot ninja and more overpower him until the Shredder sneaks up on him and almost kills him. And that's what happens here, except here it's just really portrayed as awful because, well, one, this is my favorite version of the Turtles, and even people who don't say this is their favorite version of the Turtles, they can say that the Turtles are definitely deeper characters in this show. So when Leo gets nearly killed by Shredder here, you really feel the impact. At least I did a lot more than I did in 2003 or with the Raph in the 1990 movie. And what really sells it is when Shredder just sneaks up behind Leo. We see his blade slash. I guess he supposedly slashed Leo's shell, and the screen splits and shatters into a million pieces. That is an image I'm not gonna forget anytime soon. But what makes it worse is that in season 3, when the Turtles return to New York City, Splinter has just become crazy. He's given into his feral instincts after being totally beaten up by Shredder, and when Shredder finds him, he revels in seeing that Splinter is now become feral like an animal, because he keeps calling him, saying stuff like, how fitting it is that you would become a rat. And that's how he treats him. He just beats him up and laughs in his face. But of course, Splinter is eventually turned back to normal, and he's able to reunite with the Turtles. But that's not how things go just yet, because when the Turtles have to team up with the Foot to stop the Triceratons from destroying the entire Earth, Splinter's about to hit the button, and then Shredder just stabs him in the back, quite literally, to the complete shock of everyone, and the Triceratons bomb thing goes off and the entire world starts being destroyed. There isn't even that much time for reaction to this because everyone's just so distraught and so completely caught off guard, and the Shredder just does this so nonchalantly. And once the entire world is being destroyed, that's what Tiger Claw yells at him. He says, "This is madness, Master! You would let, you would, risk your revenge, you would take revenge in turn for the exchange for the entire world's destruction?" And Shredder just yells at him, "The world can die for all I care. Hamato Yoshi is dead. I have finally won!" Oh man. Yeah, and then once the Turtles undo this with Time Traveler, able to save Splinter, and Splinter is finally able to beat up Shredder. And he's really beaten up. Because when we see him again in Season 4, which, can I just say this really quickly? The Super Shredder arc in Season 4 of the 2012 show is the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story ever. At least it's my favorite, anyway. It's about 14 episodes, I think. It's really good. So the Shredder is in this mansion hidden away somewhere with his goons, and he is really beaten up, as we can see here. He's got bandages all over his face, his arms are bruised, he's lying in a bed with tubes stuck up to him. He's practically on his deathbed. But Baxter Stockman is cooking up some kind of super mutagen to revive him, which, one, Shredder plus mutagen cannot equal anything good, obviously, but also we see here that even though he's on his deathbed practically, he's still just so evil. He still has no problems with threatening people, and it seems like he might even be able to back them up. I mean, at least for Baxter Stockman anyway. He could probably just grab him and pulverize him, even from this bed. But once he finally gets mutated, he becomes the Super Shredder, which this is definitely a much better Super Shredder design than than Secret of the Ooze, which I love that movie, but that was very clearly just thrown in last minute as a big climax thing. It wasn't even that good, and he didn't look like a Super Shredder. He just looked like a buffer Shredder with some extra blades. But this is just disgusting, and it's great. He really looks like a horrible mutated monster thing. And this just permanently sells his transformation. He is now on the outside what he was in the inside for all those years. And this is where he just decides to, I guess, psychologically torment Splinter and Karai, kind of. But as we can see, even though as Karai tells him, "Father was right about you. Your transformation into a monster is complete." Shredder still kind of has some bit of humanity left because once again, he's still pleading with Karai and doesn't want to kill her just like earlier. He's still saying that, "You are my daughter," except he's just not saying that as in, "I raised you." Now he's so far gone. He actually believes that Karai is his daughter and that Ting Shen was his wife and that Splinter killed her. He's become so stubborn, as Splinter says, you've been lying to yourself for so long, you've actually begun to believe everything you've said for all these years. He's just completely messed up. This arc also has some really grotesque imagery, which, look, I'm glad the show ended when it did, but, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled the plug on this show when they did, because Nick probably thought, yeah, this is getting too dark for Nickelodeon. Hey, I love that the show went as far as it did, but, I mean, 2003 went even further, which is definitely not something I liked. But anyway, Shredder, as we can see, he still kind of has humanity because he still sort of pleads with Karai, but eventually he he undergoes training and injects himself with more super mutagen to the point where he's just completely lost it. He now feels no remorse whatsoever. He is completely evil, a horrible creature. And he almost kills Karai. He's gonna do it too if the turtles didn't save her. And this is where things really heat up. He once again kills Splinter, except this time, this is permanent. Especially since it seemed like Splinter had finally actually defeated him, but nope, he still comes back and he stabs him through the chest. And they actually show it this time. Oh, and some people can say that if Splinter dies twice, it kind of reduces the impact, which normally I would agree with that, but I don't think it does because it feels like Splinter's death was something that was supposed to happen no matter what. And when you combine everything that happened and then you get to this scene really carries some weight, especially when the turtles find Splinter's body and they have to carry him away and they have a whole funeral for him in the next episode and everything. Again, this show did not pull its punches. It treated itself seriously. It's still a really funny show, which I definitely appreciate. The characters were always really entertaining, but this video is not about the sillier side of the show, it's about the darker, dramatic side. So, after the turtles gear up in these really edgy, but I guess kind of cool outfits to find Shredder's hideout and finally defeat him once and for all and avenge Splinter, things, do not go the way they hoped, I bet. I mean, they find Super Shredder on the rooftop and he sets the roof on fire, which I guess just makes things more dramatic, which definitely makes it look cooler, but and the turtles even bring some retro mutagen to hopefully turn him back to normal, but nope. Whatever that super mutagen stuff was, considering how many doses he took of it, he is not going to be cured. He is just this monster seemingly forever. And the turtles do their best, but eventually only Leo is left. He's the last one. And Shredder breaks his arm and beats him up. And Leo tries to yell at him. He says, "How could you do this? You killed Yoshi, Saki. He was your best friend, your brother." And Super Shredder just yells, "It was his destiny to die a rat." And then Leo gives one line that I won't forget. As Shredder grabs him, pulls him up, probably about to give a finishing blow or something, Leo says, "Look at yourself, Saki. You're a monster, a demon. Is that your destiny?" And Shredder just doesn't even have a response to this. Because everything he says is true. He's not even a monster anymore. Now he really is a demon. I mean, look at him. Look at everything he's done, everything he's said. He's so far gone. Nothing could possibly redeem him now. He's just completely horrible. But then after a little more of the fight, we get the iconic shot of Leo delivering the finishing blow, finally killing the Shredder once and for all. But of course, that's not the last we see of him, because the beginning of Season 5 has a admittedly really great arc, where the Foot bring this demon named Cavaxis, voiced by Mark Hamill. So they bring him to the Earth so they can use him to revive Shredder. And they do, but he comes back as this hideous zombie thing. And he doesn't even get to do that much, which I actually appreciate that, though. I like that they don't build the entire season around, Shredder's back, what are we going to do? Because his death at the end of Season 4, that was final. That was such an amazing scene. You wouldn't want to undo that. So what merely happens is that, as was pretty expected, Cavaxis turns on the Foot and tries to take over the world with an army of ghosts he brings from another world. But what's really interesting is that this zombie Shredder, when the turtles finally have Cavaxis defeated and they're about to toss him back to the netherworld, he still won't go, but Shredder pushes him in alongside him. As he says, "You and I do not belong in this world." Because remember, you think Shredder obviously didn't want to die at the end of season 4, but he knows now that after spending presumably months dead, I'm assuming that's how long it's been since the turtles killed him, and now he's come back as this horrible zombie and can barely even do anything because he's so weak now. He accepts that, yeah, I should. I died. I have to go. I can't come back to life. And that's the last we ever see of him. Well, unless you count that bit where the turtles see their greatest fears and Leo sees Shredder. But so in conclusion, that's how the 2012 Turtles show perfected the Shredder. I mean, because think about it. He's really an amalgamation of every great aspect of the franchise, which is that's really what the 2012 show was. It took the sillier side and a lot of the crazy one-episode characters of the 1987 show, and the darker, serious tone of the 2003 show, and melded it together to make something that was really, really good. I've definitely got problems with the 2012 show, but I think the Shredder is just the prime example of how I was able to meld things together. Because we keep the this guy is darker and serious, like in the 2003 show, but we don't forget that but they also kept in the bit for the 1987 show where he was Hamato Yoshi's rival. And I think when you put all that together, you get one of the best villains I've ever seen. This guy is Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish levels of a great villain. Is he as good as that? Maybe actually, because wow, this show really left an impression on me, especially the version of the Shredder. Everything from his design and Kevin Michael Richardson's amazing performance. And I appreciate that, much like Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I want to review that movie eventually. They're able to make him seem like he could be a real person, kind of, but a real person as in the most evil man you could possibly imagine, where he's just so evil and too far gone. It seems like, much like Frollo, it seems like there are even a few points where he might have been able to redeem himself. It would have taken a long time, but he could have. But he, of course, rejected them because he's so obsessed with his hate and malice that by the end, he literally becomes this horrifying abomination creature. And when he comes back to life, he's nothing more than this pathetic zombie. Wow, this show was well written. So, comment down below what you thought of this. I'm quite proud of this video. So, that's all for now. And as always, keep on juicing.